Welcome, everyone, to our last session of our first day of our summit. I'm Melissa Braxton. I am a care service coordinator with ALS United Greater New York, and I service our lovely New Jersey patients. I have our wonderful host today, Tejal Parikh, who is going to be speaking about home accessibility, adapting your home to make it safe and accessible. I also have the pleasure of working alongside with Tejal at our Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Clinic. She is an experienced occupational therapist since 2015 and working with our ALS clinic. Um, and she works very, very closely with our ALS patients and their families to address the challenges that they have with this disease journey. In 2023, she joined our organization as our accessibility specialist. She continues to develop home-based solutions that promote safety, independence, and a great quality of life. Tejal is also a certified aging in place specialist through the National Association of Home Builders, further equipping her to guiding families and making effective home modifications. Welcome, Tejal.
Thank you, Melissa, and thank you so much for the introduction. I'm just going to share my screen right here. Okay. Well, thank you, everyone, and thank you, Melissa, for the introduction. It has been an honor to be a part of the Rutgers Robert Wood Johnson Clinic, ALS Clinic, for the past 10 years. I have learned a lot, to say the least. So today we will be discussing ways to make your home safe and accessible. And as the accessibility specialist with ALS United Greater New York, many of these topics are things that I get to discuss with patients and their families during video home assessments, but more on that later. So today we are going to be looking at key areas in your home when considering how to make your home more accessible and safe. We'll be covering a variety of topics today regarding home modification to make it more accessible. So we'll be reviewing the use of ramps and vertical platform lifts to create easy access in and out of your home. I'll highlight the importance of setting up accessible spaces in your home, whether it's in your bedroom or whether it's on the main level. We'll also take a look at steps in your home or review steps in your home. And we'll also focus on modifications and how to make your bathroom more accessible and safe for you. So we'll take a look at your shower setup, your toilet setup, and possible changes to your vanity. And I think it's going to be really important for us to discuss the use of durable medical equipment because that is a way to make your home safe and accessible without having to modify the actual physical space. So a couple things to keep in mind is I want to talk about the space that we have in your home. I think, all of our homes come in all different shapes and sizes, and we have different things that we need to take into consideration. So I want you to really take a look at your home and think what you could do to create a better functional space to make it more safe and accessible. I also want you to consider time. Oftentimes people will come and tell me, well, I'm not there yet, so I don't need to make this change. And I really urge you to reconsider, to take that into consideration in terms of the word yet. So a lot of people will say, I'm not there yet. So yet is a really small word, 3 letters, but it holds so much weight. For instance, someone will say, and oftentimes I'll ask patients to define yet. What is yet? When is yet? And they'll say, oh, when I get to this point, this is when I'll make that change. But when they get to that point, they'll say, meh, maybe not yet. And they'll move the definition further and further. And then at some point, they'll say, all right, I'm ready to make this modification. However, we might have missed that opportunity to make a certain change and adaptation for it to be practical and for it to be functional. So it's really important to take into consideration the time it would take to make some of these modifications. Some of the things that we discussed today will be quick, and some other ones might take a couple weeks or even a couple months to complete. It's also important to take into consideration the financial aspects of some of these modifications. Some of these changes might be a low budget or a low cost change, but some of them, like a full-on bathroom modification, could be thousands of dollars. I will not be talking about specific price tags on modifications, but I think it's important for you to take this into consideration. And as I mentioned before, I really like to focus on practicality and functionality when making modifications. So I'm not one to say, oh, just tear down this wall, or who cares, you don't need this anyways. I really like to focus on what your personal needs are as a person and as a family, and what's really important to you. That being said, I really think it's important for you as an individual and as a family to have a flexible mindset, to really break down some of the constructs that we have in our home. Oftentimes the the person, like the architect, will give us a blueprint of our home or of our apartment layout, of our house layout. And aside from the bathroom and the kitchen that really need to remain as the bathroom and kitchen, there are other parts of the home that we can make into your living space. For instance, you can make your living room into your bedroom, or you can make your office into a bedroom. So it's really important to keep a flexible mindset in how you can manipulate your home and change your home to create a safer and accessible space. I also want to discuss today the importance of considering your mobility status. So a lot of the things that we talk about today will discuss the use of needing a walker, or using a manual wheelchair, or a power wheelchair, or another wheeled device like a rolling commode or a rolling shower chair. And when we talk about making your space more accessible, we really want to consider your mobility status. So we're going to jump right into home access. And what is home access, and what do you need to know? So home access is your ability to get in and outside of your house or your home, plain and simple. So oftentimes we have entrances to our home, like we'll say, I enter my home through my garage, but some people enter their home through their front door. So when we look at home access, we want to take a look at all the different entry points of your home, whether it's the front door, the side door, the backyard, or even the ground floor. And if there's access to, if is there a space on the ground floor that you might be able to set up? So we really want to take a look at all the different entryways to your home. We also want to take into consideration, is there a driveway access, or is there a sidewalk access to this entryway? I'll have families say, yeah, I have this great door. It's big, it's accessible, it's in the backyard, and we can just put a ramp there. And that's really great. However, if we put a ramp in the backyard and there is no walkway to the driveway, then what do we do? So we want to take into consideration, is there a fence? Is there a walkway? And how can we get to the street level? And then furthermore, lastly, I do want to talk about doorway widths, and we're going to talk about that in a couple slides ahead. But it is something that we want to take into consideration, because just because this one doorway might be more accessible with leading to the driveway, it might be a little bit more challenging in terms of actually passing through the doorway. So we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, I'd like to really talk about ramps. So what are ramps? So there's a couple different types. There's one type is the modular ramp, which is like the bigger ramps that we see that we tend to consider when exiting or entering a home. They are generally made out of aluminum, and these ramps are modular ramps, which means that they can fit together like Lego pieces. The other types of ramps is what we call a threshold, like a portable ramp or a threshold ramp. They tend to be shorter in distance. They can come from anywhere from 2 feet to 4 feet to 6 feet, 10 feet even. But it's important to take into consideration, the longer the ramp, the heavier they're going to be. So when looking at an entryway and determining what is the best set up for a ramp, we want to take a look at the total height of the entrance. So that's going to mean from the from the floor to the top of the step. So a lot of times I'll have families say, oh, there's only 2 steps, or there's only 3 steps. So, and they're not very big, but generally average step height is anywhere between 6 to 8 inches. And you'll be surprised that even if you go into your front yard or whatever, your entryway, and measure multiple steps, oftentimes they're different heights. And it's really important to take into consideration the complete and total height of the entranceway. And we want to take a look at the type of yard that you have. Is your yard flat or is there a little bit of a ground slope? And this is all important information because the ADA suggests that for every inch of a rise, there should be 1 foot of a ramp. So, for instance, if there are 4 steps to enter your home and each of those steps are 7 inches tall, you will need a total of 28 feet of ramp. So that's a lot. A lot of times it's like, it's just 4 steps. It's not going to be that much. I might just need an 8-foot ramp. Well, here's the problem. When your ramp is too steep, it can cause an issue, a safety issue. So too steep of a slope can cause someone to fall, or it can require a lot of effort from a caregiver when pushing a loved one up the ramp or down a ramp in a wheelchair. If someone was using a walker, you would have to use a lot of caution to walk down a very steep slope. So we want the slope of the ramp to be safe. So the 1 to 12 ratio is what is recommended. That being said, also with power wheelchairs, if the slope of the ramp is too steep, it may not be safe to use your power wheelchair. And so we've had families that say, occasionally I'll have people that say, you know what, I'll manage. I'm just going to use this 8-foot ramp. That's all the space that I have. And I have to respect that, but I also want them to understand the safety considerations when choosing a ramp that's too steep. The other thing I want to take into consideration is the use of platforms with ramps. A platform can be used while constructing a ramp, either at the beginning of a ramp, right at the entryway. So that way, when you exit the home, you have a resting area. Also, right before you enter a home, you have a resting area where if you needed to open the door, if someone needed to open the door, we don't have to worry about you resting on the ramp. Platforms also are beneficial because they can help create turns in a ramp. So that way we have the safest layout when constructing a ramp. So I'm going to show you a picture of a ramp that I had helped a family create in their yard. So as you can see in this picture, this this doorway is actually not their front door. In fact, their front door was not accessible, it would not have been possible to place a ramp in their front yard. So we had to get really creative and we were able to come up with a solution to use their backyard entryway. And what the family was able to do is they were able to maintain a flexible mindset and they were agreeable to cut out a portion of their covered porch. So as you can see that there is a red door and that red door is in the vestibule of this covered porch area. So what they did was they created this entryway where the ramp was able to start. And as you can also see in this picture, there's actually 2 sets of stairs that lead to the doorway. So the total rise of this from the ground to the door was actually 50 inches, which meant that this ramp had to be 50 feet. Now, 50 feet is a really long distance, especially when we're thinking about a 50-foot long ramp. Oftentimes we'll think of a straight ramp, but it would not have been feasible. So what we had to do is we had to create this U shape of a ramp, which would end up leading to a paved pathway, which eventually led to their driveway. So this was a great solution for our family. They were able to think out of the box and be willing to make modifications to their entryway. This is not always the case. Everyone's house is different. Everyone's home is different. Every township also has different rules and regulations in regards to ramps and easements. And so it's really important for you um, to determine which entryway would be the safest and best accessible when using a ramp. I do want to say it's not necessary. I think I mentioned this, but it's not necessary to create actual physical altercations to your home, just like this family did. They were willing and able to do it, but it's not to say that you have to do something like this. This is another picture, another view of the same ramp. This is how it looked from the beginning from the top of the ramp. And this ramp does take up a considerable amount of space in their yard, but the family was willing to take up that space so they can accommodate the ramp. Another option that doesn't take up as much space as a ramp would is a vertical platform lift. So a vertical platform lift is designed to transport people vertically between two different levels. So a vertical platform lift, there's several considerations that need to be made. One is that in order to have a vertical platform lift, you need a concrete base. You'll need at least a 5-foot by 5-foot concrete base for which the vertical platform lift can sit upon. So that means you need to have that type of space available in your yard, which means that you might have to take away some of your landscaping or create more of a paved pathway to use the vertical platform lift. Some families choose to put a vertical platform lift in their garage setting, which can be a great option. However, if you are parking your car in that garage, or if you are using your garage for storage, then you need to consider, would you be okay with finding a new space for some of that storage, or to be able to park your car in the driveway or on the street. You'll also need an electrical outlet for a vertical platform lift. So that means that you might need an additional electrical work or an electrician to come in to help set this up. Some families, and this is not necessary, but some families do opt to get a generator to help with the electrical source in case the power goes out. It's also important to note that unlike ramps, so ramps when installing a ramp, the general process, you can have a ramp installed within a few weeks. Even from within 2 weeks, you can have a ramp installed, because generally vendors have these ramp pieces available and ready to go. With vertical platform lifts, the process tends to be longer, generally about 6 to 8 weeks, depending on the vendor, depending on the type of lift that you choose, depending on the work that you might need to do in the yard. So I think it's really important to take that into consideration when making a decision between vertical platform lifts and ramps. So this is a picture of a vertical platform lift, and as you can see, this vertical platform lift required the family to remove part of the rails on their deck to accommodate the vertical platform lift. In its place is a gate that would prevent anyone from falling from the top, but I think it showed that the family was willing to make and able to make these modifications to the deck to accommodate the vertical platform lift. So moving on to the inside of the home, I want to talk a little bit about modifications that you can make inside of the home to make your space more accessible and safe. Oftentimes, when thinking about creating a space, you want to think about an open space concept, right? So that might mean that even in your current bedroom, how can I make the space more accessible? So that might mean you have to rearrange the furniture. It might mean that you have to reorient the bed or reorient the dresser, or just remove the dresser altogether. I strongly recommend the removal of area rugs and throw rugs. I know they really help with sound and keeping the room warm, and it really helps with the aesthetic of the room. However, throw rugs and area rugs are a big fall and tripping hazard. So that is like Falls 101. Please remove all area rugs and throw rugs. And that is a great way to keep your space safe. Another thing we want to think about is your light source in your room, in your home. Take, for instance, if someone who might have good leg strength and is ambulatory and is able to walk, however, their arms are weak and they're having trouble lifting their arm, or they have limited range of motion, turning on and turning off lights could be frustrating. It might make them have to rely on a caregiver to turn on and off lights. So one of the recommendations that I have made to families is to consider motion sensor lights. So it doesn't even necessarily mean big electrical work. There are a lot of great options that are available online for even smaller lights that you could wave to turn on to create light in a room. Another recommendation for lights is the use of night lights that you can place throughout your room and throughout your home, especially because at night there is a greater chance of tripping and falling around, and it can cause the darkness can be hazardous. So by having night lights, you can illuminate the ground and the floor to avoid potential obstacles while walking to the bathroom. And then in general, in terms of general home modifications, we really want to talk about doorways, and I'm going to talk about them in a couple slides. So when creating space in your home to make it more accessible, as I've mentioned and I keep mentioning, is that flexible mindset is really we want to think about how we can reorganize the space. So there are some people or some families that are able to, they may not, they'll say, you know what, I don't have a bedroom on the first floor. And I don't know, or I don't have a bathroom on the first floor, or all I have is a powder room or a half bathroom on the first floor. What am I going to do? Or I only want to go to the second floor. We always get that. Like, I'm not moving to the first floor. I'm only staying on the second floor. And I understand that and I respect that. But what I want to urge you to do is really take the safety into consideration. So if you wanted to remain on the second floor in case of an emergency, how would you get to the first floor, right? And how quick is it for you to exit the home, right? The other thing I say about having a second floor setup is that it can be isolating. When much of, if say on your second floor there was only the bedroom and there was no kitchen, there was no living space, there's no common area, it can be isolating because many times people are spending time in those common areas of the home. So, but that's not to say that your second floor of your home might have your kitchen and that's where you want to stay and that's what's important to you. And so like then we talk about how can we get you up there, or how can we make that space a little bit more accommodating to your needs, right? It's also important to consider, is there a bathroom on that level? So if you were to move to the first floor and there's no bathroom, it's important to talk to your physical and occupational therapist to find out what the options are to be able to use the bathroom on the first floor. We'll also talk about that a little later in this presentation. The lighting in the room is really important when considering how to set up a bedroom or a sleeping space on the first floor. Many times, some of the bigger rooms, like the living rooms and dining rooms, have wonderful windows, which let in a lot of light, which is great for the daytime, but it can also be frustrating when you're trying to catch some Z's and when you're trying to sleep. So we want to think about, can you put on blackout curtains or blinds to make the room a little bit darker so we can facilitate good sleep hygiene? On the reverse side, I've had conversations with families that say, you know what, our ground floor, this is, if we got to do it, we'll do it, but there's no natural light. And so if light is something that is important to you, you want to take that in consideration when making a decision on which level of the home that you want to stay in. Another issue that often comes up during my conversation is privacy. So, you know, there's no bedroom or there's no office, there's no space on that main level, right? Where there's access to in and out of their home. So, like on the first floor, there's no bedroom. So, how do we create privacy? Oftentimes, I'll recommend to get room dividers to create different areas in the room for privacy, especially when if you need to use a commode outside of the bathroom, or if you want to set up a hospital bed or a regular bed. The use of room dividers can be really functional and really effective for creating privacy. Again, moving furniture, rearranging it, reorienting it is important, and do you have the space to do it? Painting the room is a great way to modify the space. It'll make your space look completely different and it won't feel like the dining room anymore. So just a quick coat of paint will make a world of a difference and can ease some of the transition, right? Because it's frustrating. I get it. We don't want to make these changes, but we're here. So what can I do to make the space my own? And a fresh coat of paint can easily do that. And as I mentioned before, when creating a first floor space or when creating an accessible space where you want to spend a lot of your time, you want to take into consideration, is there access into a entryway? So just to move on to doorways, because I keep talking about doors. So doors is probably one of the most discussed topics that I have with people. And the ADA suggests that doorways have 32 inches of clearance, which means that there should be space there should be 32 inches of space to enter and exit a doorway. So, and we want that doorway to open to 90 degrees, which is important because I know in some of the, especially in some of the New York City homes that I've seen, there is like a radiator that is behind the door, which can affect the door opening effectively all the way, right? To that 90 degree, which can affect your ability to move in using even a walker or a wheelchair. So we need to take that into consideration. Every inch with the doorway will make a huge difference. So 32 inches is the ADA standards. I generally think anywhere between 28 to 32 is good. Anything less than 28, it becomes much more trickier to use a rolled device in. So one quick way to make an adaptation to your current door is just to consider the actual doorknob itself. Traditional round doorknobs can be really hard to manipulate for someone that might have fine motor weakness or range of motion limitations. So the addition of using a lever on doorknobs can make it really easy and to open doors for someone that might have limitations in their fine motor coordination or in their strength. It's also really important to take into consideration thresholds and saddles. So those are the transitions between two rooms. Oftentimes, if you have two rooms that might have carpet and hardwood, one level might be higher than the other. And so we use like thresholds and saddles to accommodate for that space. However, when using a rolled device like a rollator or a walker or even a wheelchair, even half an inch or a quarter inch of a height discrepancy can create an obstacle to navigate. So there are items that are called threshold ramps that are available at Home Depot, at Lowe's, that can accommodate for some of these smaller height differentials. So one of the topics that I also discuss is the ability to create or to modify your doorway. So so here are 3 examples to modify your doorway to make it a little bit more accessible and to create more space. So say you are interested in removing your door and changing your door. So one of the ways that you could do that is to remove your traditional door and to add a pocket door. So a pocket door is the image on the left-hand side, and essentially it's a door that fits between the walls of a room. So you would need generally a contractor to help add a pocket door into the home. It's important also that the pocket door fit fully into the doorway. So you're going to need the space on the wall. So that way the door isn't hanging in the door jamb itself and limiting the space, continues to limit the space, right? We want full access, as much space as we can get. Pocket doors are a great option. You might also need to take into consideration a light switch. So sometimes there's like a light switch on the wall, which might limit the ability to use a pocket door. So you might need electrical work if you needed to change it out. One additional option is just to remove the door itself. That is an unpopular recommendation, but some people still do that. And what they'll do is they will instead create a barn door. So that is a good option. So the barn door is a door that fits outside of the doorway itself, and it's attached to a lever on top. So you need good wall reinforcement in order to install this door, because it needs to tolerate the weight of the door itself. Again, you will need space considerations on either side where you want the door to be able to open all the way, but it has been a great solution for some of our families. As I mentioned, removing the doorway can often be a little awkward, but for some families, they are willing to do that, especially if it's going to create that space. So what they can do is you can just put a curtain rod, you can put a shower curtain rod and attach a curtain, and voila, you have a little bit of privacy and you have better accessibility in and out of the bathroom. One other way to make your doorway a little bit more accessible is the addition of these offset hinges. So offset hinges, what they do is they take the door out of the doorway and they push it back a little bit. And that creates an additional 1 to 2 inches where the door would take up that space in that doorway. This next slide will demonstrate how to demonstrate what a threshold ramp or a saddle ramp could look like. Again, they come in different forms. This one is metal. There are rubber ones as well. I generally do not recommend getting a threshold ramp for a height differential that's really more than 2 inches, because that to me would require a better and safer ramp. One of the biggest topics in the home during my home discussions is stair glides, and they are a controversial topic because oftentimes to me the use of stair glides can be it's controversial because it may not always be the safest options, and I find that oftentimes families or patients will continue to use a stair glide far longer than it is safe. If you're having trouble with transferring, meaning if you're having trouble going from a seated position to a standing position, or if you're having some neck weakness or some weakness in your core strength, your trunk strength, then maybe a stair glide may not be the safest option. A stair glide is good, especially at the beginning of your journey when you're trying to conserve some of your energy, if you're having a little bit of weakness, but getting to the second floor is really integral to your daily routine, then a stair glide is a good option. Generally, most clinicians will say stair glides are more of a temporary option. They're not a permanent solution to changes in your mobility. So I generally recommend renting a stair glide versus actually purchasing and installing a stair glide for permanently in your home. It's also important to consider the number of steps in the house. Is it a straight staircase or is it a curving staircase? Oftentimes we'll have individuals, they'll say there's 2 steps and then there's a turn and there's a straightaway all the way up to the top, or vice versa, 10 steps or 5 steps and then another 5 steps with the turn. So also taking that into consideration, you want a stair glide that's going to take you from the bottom all the way to the top. So curve as you go up. We don't recommend having 2 sets of stair glides where you would have to stand up from one and transfer onto another stair glide. So I think it's a really important discussion to have with your clinic therapist, your occupational and your physical therapist. When talking about bedroom accessibility, we've already talked about the notions of creating that open concept and removing area rugs and rearranging furniture. But in terms of bedroom accessibility, I think it's important to quickly touch on the types of beds that you might be open to using. And those beds are a hospital bed versus an adjustable bed. And both of those do take up space in the room, and so you might have to be creative with the placement of those beds. Hospital beds are generally bigger than a twin size bed, but their mattress is about the size of a twin size. Adjustable beds can come in a twin or a single form, or you would be able to also get adjustable beds that are queen size or accommodate a second person for your spouse or your loved one, your significant other, or your caregiver to sleep next to you. So there are several different options, but it's important to consider the size. One other way to make your bedroom more accessible is the use of bed rails. I strongly recommend speaking with your clinic therapist to determine which bed rail would be best for you. But bed rails are a quick and easy adaptation. They're also very cost effective in terms of cost when compared to hospital beds or adjustable beds, and they generally fit between the mattress and the box spring. But they are a great solution and make your space a little bit more accessible. Moving on, I want to talk about accessibility in the bathroom. So when talking about the bathroom, we're going to be talking about changes that you can make to your sink and vanity, the toilet, and how you can modify your shower and your bathtub to make it more accessible. These topics will we'll discuss a lot more durable medical equipment because those are really important to consider when talking about accessibility. So some of the adjustments that I recommend for the bathroom is first is considering creating a resting area in your bathroom, especially if you're planning to modify your bathroom completely, meaning to make it really accessible for you, or if you have a current space that's available to create a resting area, I would recommend that. So a resting area is a space where you can put a chair or a bench, someplace, or even a wheelchair where you can park your wheelchair, someplace where you can sit and you can rest, do just that. Or you can get dressed, but someplace where you don't have to stand or necessarily sit on the toilet for a rest. So I think it's a good point of consideration is creating a resting area. Next, bath mats. They go under the same topic as area rugs and throw rugs. So if you have the opportunity to remove the bath mat, I would recommend that. Otherwise, I would make sure that you have a piece of Dyson, which is a non-skid piece of plastic material that would prevent the bath mat from slipping. You can also get any other non-skid stickers that you can place underneath the bath mat, but you can also get non-skid stickers to place within your bathtub or even in your stall shower to prevent falls. And then the next topic is grab bars. Grab bars are a hot topic. Everyone asks, where can I put my grab bar? Where can I put a grab bar? And grab bars are crucial and they are essential. But again, they are one of those items that are more effective at different stages in the disease process. So grab bars are handles that you can hold on to for more stability. They are not towel racks and towel holders, or they are not toilet paper holders. We want actual grab bars that are installed in the studs of the wall. So we want them to be reinforced. I do not like, and most therapists will even cringe at the thought of using a suction grab bar because they are likely to get loose. And if you were applying a lot of pressure, sometimes even little pressure, they have a tendency to pop off. So we do recommend when you have the opportunity to install grab bars firmly into the wall. Grab bars should generally be from anywhere between 33 to 36 inches off of the ground. Whether it's a horizontal placement or a vertical placement, that's definitely a conversation that you can have with your therapist. It also depends on how you transfer. Another important note is that if the grab bar is out of your base of support, if you're placing it somewhere where you have to reach for it, it might not be an appropriate location for the grab bar. So you really want to take that into consideration. Moving on to the sink. So the sink is a place, modifications to the sink can include replacing the sink altogether. So a pedestal sink, oftentimes people will have, and you're able to sit underneath a pedestal sink. It really just depends on the height of the sink. But the reason why someone would want to replace the sink or the vanity is because they want the ability to sit at the sink to participate in their activities of daily living, which would include shaving or brushing their teeth or combing their hair. So the ADA would suggest that if you are going to get a sink, that you would consider their space underneath the sink to be at least 27 inches. So that way, when you're sitting, you have access to the sink. Once you're sitting and you want to, if you're sitting, you want to be able to look in the mirror. It's the bathroom. So you want to bring the height of the mirror lower. So that way it's flush with the sink top. You can also consider a tilting mirror. So that way that's something where you can tilt the mirror and you don't have to bring it all the way low, but you'll be able to tilt it so you can look at yourself while you're sitting. You don't have to modify. You don't need to get a new sink. But say if you were having some trouble, again, with arm range of motion or fine motor coordination, you were having trouble maneuvering the knobs on the sink, you can consider getting a different faucet, and you can consider one with levers. You could also consider motion sensor sinks. These are more and more popular these days. The technology really supports it. So the motion sensor faucet. One of the other things you want to take into consideration is the towel holder. So if you're at the sink and you need to dry your hands, oftentimes towel holders are higher or require you to reach out of your base of support. So you want to try to bring the towel holder a little lower, a little easier to access while you're sitting or even while you're standing when you don't have to reach up as far. So these are just some considerations when you want to, if you wanted to make at the sink or at the vanity. So it would require to remove your vanity, and that does mean that you might have to find space for the storage underneath your vanity. Moving on, I want to talk about toilets because this is another hot topic. So bathroom accessibility in terms of toileting, most standard height toilets are 15 inches from the ground to the top of the toilet seat. So that's kind of low. The newer toilets come in what we call comfort height. So those are 17 to 19 inches high. 17 inches is generally a good height. 19 inches can be a little bit taller, but depending on your height, that might be a better an accommodating height for you. So anywhere between 17 to 19 inches is a good height for a toilet. And that is also somewhat of a quick renovation. But say you don't have the ability to change out your toilet height. We want to talk about how can we adapt the toilet to make it more accessible and make it safer. Oftentimes, families will come to clinic and say, well, I have this raised toilet seat. I had it or somebody gave it to me. So a raised toilet seat is those plastic donut type items that require clamping onto a toilet. Generally, to me, raised toilet seats are a temporary item. They're really meant for those individuals that have undergone a hip or a knee replacement. They're not really meant for our population. So what I generally recommend is, say you already have a comfort height toilet. It's a good height for you for sitting, but you need some more support for standing up or for when you're sitting down. A grab bar may not be possible because of lack of wall blocking, so there's no reinforcement of the wall, or because the wall is actually further away from the sink, from the toilet. So what you can consider is adding handles to the toilet. So these are the left two images are images of what handles would look like. They are pretty easy to install right on top of the toilet and fairly cost efficient and effective. Another option is to use a commode. You would remove the pot from the commode and place it on top of the toilet. And this item is covered by insurance, so that's something that you could use. You could request a prescription from your clinic team. And the great thing about the commode is that you would be able to use it outside of the toilet, outside of the bathroom as well. You can place it in a bedroom, or you can place it even on the first floor. Say you don't have a bathroom on the first floor, but you needed to use the bathroom, where you can use a commode. So there are some opportunities. Another adaptation to the toilet is the use of a bidet. We're not talking about a separate item like in Europe, where you would sit on the bidet. This bidet is a bidet attachment that we attach right to the toilet seat. There are many different options. Many of my patients have said that this is a game changer. With the push of a button, a bidet will be able to help you clean and cleanse your bottom after using the bathroom. Moving on, I want to talk a little bit about showering. This is a big discussion to have with your physical and occupational therapist regarding which durable medical equipment would be appropriate for you in terms of making your bathroom space more accessible and safe for you to shower in. This is a picture of an image of a typical shower chair. If you were to use a shower chair, I do recommend one that has a back, such as this one, and one that has arms. The great thing about armrest, the great thing about these shower chairs is that they are height adjustable, and you could use this as a part of the resting area in your bathroom if you needed, or if you wanted to sit at the sink, you can sit on this shower chair. Shower chairs fit really good inside walk-in showers and stall showers. They don't fit so great in bathtubs. So the use of a sliding transfer tub bench would be beneficial when wanting to continue to shower in the bathtub. So the sliding transfer tub bench 2 legs fit on the inside of the tub and 2 legs fit on the outside of the tub. This specific model is great because it swivels and allows you to turn and get in and out of the tub. Yes, you will likely need an additional person, a caregiver, to help you in and out of the tub using this device, but this is one way to make your bathroom more accessible. I do suggest that you speak with your clinician, or you can even speak with me if you want to discuss if you have the space in your bathroom for one. You want to take into consideration the location of your sink and your toilet when being able to use this sliding transfer tub bench. Briefly, I just wanted to mention these shower chairs. These are 2 types of shower chairs. They are both rolling shower chairs. The item on the right, on the left, is wonderful because it comes with a good back support. It comes with armrests. It has footrests, and it also has the ability to roll on top of your toilet. All you have to do is remove that pot from underneath. So, and then the item on the right is a brand name. It's called a Shower Buddy, but it has the ability to tilt in space, which is a great option for someone who has a barrier-free shower setting and is able to shower in the shower, but is unable to tolerate upright sitting. So this is an option that several families have used to continue to shower through their journey with ALS. So when we talk about showers and bathtub adaptation, we often talk about barrier-free showers. Barrier-free showers is a shower stall that has no lip, zero barrier. So the floor of the shower is flush with the floor of the bathroom. Generally, the drain of that barrier-free shower would have to be dropped. So if you had a bathtub or if you had an existing walk-in shower, in order to create a barrier-free environment, you would have to drop the drain a couple inches, like 2 to 3 inches. So you would need to have access to the bottom of the drain from underneath that floor. So whether that means to go to the basement or to go to the first floor to accommodate the drain. When talking about showering and the barrier-free showers, I generally recommend using handheld showers because it does help facilitate showering. It does allow you to control the water a lot better when you're sitting to shower. It's really important to consider the cost that it would take to make a barrier-free shower, and you really want to think about the practicality. Is this something, for some people, showering is really important, and for other people, it could be really fatiguing, and it's not something that they want to continue to do frequently. So, whether you want to make the adaptations to make a barrier-free shower is really a personal decision. It does take time, so unlike the durable medical equipment that you can purchase and have within a couple of days, making the modifications to your bathroom can obviously take weeks and if not months, depending on your contractor. When making a modification to your shower, sometimes the quickest and easiest way is just to remove a shower door and replacing it with a shower curtain. When you want to and the other thing I wanted to just quickly mention is in the barrier-free shower, I do not recommend the built-in benches. I'm not a fan of them. I'd rather that you use the shower chair, one of the shower chairs that I showed you before. But creating a barrier-free shower for many families has been a great option for energy conservation, preventing falls, and to continue to participate in a very special and important activity of daily living. I briefly just wanted to touch on smart home accessibility because accessibility just doesn't mean physical changes. It could also mean changes to the technology in your home to control your home. So you can use Google or Alexa to control different parts of your home. You can use to turn on the lights or to turn off the television. You can use apps on your phone to do that. There are switch controls that can also help you control the environment. And also there are other apps and devices where you can use speech output on a communication device that can be controlled with the switch. But my colleague, Ben Lehman, would have great information, as well as Bridging Voice. They are a tremendous organization that can help with technology and accessibility in your home. So as I mentioned before, I know we went over a lot of this information. It was a brief overview, and not everyone's home is the same, but Through ALS United Greater New York, I am able to connect with you and with your family to conduct a virtual and video home assessment. I'd be more than happy to take a look at your home and help make personalized recommendations to make your home more accessible and safe. I would do so via Zoom or via FaceTime, and all you need is a measuring tape. So, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you having me on today.
Thank you, Tejal, for such a wonderful, informative presentation. We do have some questions. The first one is, do you know if 55 and over communities require especially new builds, to comply with ADA standards?
So generally, ADA with private homes, you do not have to follow ADA guidelines. ADA guidelines are meant for public spaces. So it might depend on the specific homeowners association, your HOA, but to make changes inside of your home, they don't have to be ADA specific unless your HOA says so. So
Okay.
that means for even like bathroom modifications, um, or even the ramps.
Mm, excellent. And what about insurance? Our biggest thing, are ramps and the lift platforms, are they covered through insurance? Do you know?
Generally, they are not covered by insurance, and I think that is it can be really frustrating for families when they're looking for a little bit of support, but insurance does not cover lifts, vertical platform lifts or insurances. With the use of a prescription, oftentimes vendors will be able to waive the tax on the ramps, but insurance will not cover them. But with ALS United Greater New York, we do have a ramp program where we are able to help families with using some of donated banked material towards a project to help offset some of the cost of the project. It really just varies on the type of project and what you're looking for.
May I add, but in New Jersey, if you do have Medicaid, specifically MLTSS, like you hear me talk about it all the time at clinic, they do have a home mod benefit of $10,000 for your lifetime. But as you know, it's very difficult to get on Medicaid, as majority of our patients don't qualify, unfortunately. Um,
Wait, that
next,
is actually a really great point, Melissa. Sorry to interrupt.
no,
Some townships, and I have had some even experience in Long Island, where certain townships, certain fire departments have programs that might be able to help you construct a ramp outside of your home. So I think it's really important to take a look at local organizations that might be able to help with this project.
yeah, and I've heard like Kiwanis Club or, Knights of Columbus will get volunteers to help out build out a ramp. Um, Also, I know in New Jersey, sometimes the Department of Senior Services might assist with the cost, but it's very hit or
Township
miss.
permitting, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Another question we have is, do you have specific contractors that you recommend for New Jersey and New York, that you've built relationships with? Do you usually provide, I'm the type, as a social worker, I give 3 referrals, so and they make their guess. How do you practice?
Yeah, great question. So I do with vendors for ramps and vertical platform lift. There are several vendors that we work with closely and multiple times all across our greater New York area. So in Long Island, Lower Hudson Valley, New York City, and in New Jersey, we do have vendors that we have worked with and that we have been able to vet with this process. Unfortunately, when it comes to home modifications, that's when it's a little bit more challenging, as you can understand, because your experience with contractors might be different than my experience, than Marianne's experience. So it's harder for us to vet those contractors. So we don't generally give recommendations out for those modifications. But for ramps and vertical platform lifts, absolutely, we have vendors that we work closely with.
Great. And also there's not a question, but a great comment from Tom. He said, "Thank you for your home assessment and your support." I know we've supported his family,
You're welcome. Thank you. Means a lot.
definitely. And let me just see any other questions. Hold on one second. Mm, 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 mm.
I know we went over a lot of this information really briefly and really quickly, but feel free to email me or call me if you have any questions and to reach out to your clinic team. They are your best source for information. They know you the best and they have more unique and personalized recommendations for you oftentimes. But my role is to really help you navigate this journey and to answer or to clarify some of the questions that you might have after you've attended clinic.
Definitely. Thank you so much, Tejal. Thank you,
You're
everyone.
welcome.
And tomorrow, I hope to see everyone's beautiful selves back here tomorrow at 9:30. And our first session is about ALS advocacy for all. Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you.